Hello and welcome to NS8. We're going to be talking about more real life skills here. So this is not something that you're going to see for a while, but not too long, because if you haven't already been looking into it, eventually as you start to need to buy things like, of course, houses, but also smaller things like buying furniture, taking out credit cards, opening up bank accounts, buying a car, so many things, you need to know this word interest. Okay, what does that mean? So now we're going to talk about the good kind of interest, the interest where you get paid. So when you put your money into a checking account, it just sits there. It's easy to use. Your debit card's attached to it. You can write checks. But there's also things called savings accounts, and there's a lot more more complicated and more profitable things than savings accounts. But that's the simplest one. That's one where you could go out and open it up right now if you wanted to. You won't get these kind of interest rates, but let's pretend that you did. So let's say you've got a bank account that pays you earn 5% interest, all right? Now that means that's how much the bank is paying you to keep the money in their hands and not take it out. So the more you leave in the bank account, the savings account, and the longer you leave there and the more you put in there, the more money you can make through interest. So what happens if Michael puts $6,000 into that savings account, that bank account, and the bank says we're going to give you 5% interest, and he puts it in there for 3 years, okay? How much money is he going to make? Now, how much will be in the account? Okay, we know that if he puts $6,000 in the bank account, 3 years later, that $6,000 will still be there. The interest is how much more will he earn? How much more will be put into that bank account by the bank? That's what interest is. So to solve that, you need to know three things. You need to know the principal, and that is the deposit. How much was in the bank account on day one? You need to know the rate, all right? That's your percentage. And then you need to know the time. Okay, and then you multiply them. So let's go ahead and do it. So we've got 6,000, that's our principal, times, the rate is 5%, but you always need to write the percent as a decimal. So twice to the left gives you 0.05. If you had a calculator, you wouldn't need to do this, but on the Casey, you don't, so you got to learn how to do it by hand. You've already practiced this skill. And finally, time. Time is, in this case, 3 years. If they give you months or days or weeks, it'll be different. You can't just use this number, but if it's years, then go ahead and just put that number over. And then multiply across. So we've got 6,000 times 0.05. That equals 300. And then we take that 300 and we're going to multiply it by that 3. That's the time. And 300 times 3 is going to be 900. So if he puts $6,000 in the bank account and leaves it there for 3 years, when they're giving him 5% interest, he is going to earn an extra $900. Just for letting the money sit there. Doesn't have to do any work, just leave the money sitting there. And he makes $900 in interest. Okay, let's check out a different kind of problem, but the same idea will apply. Okay, so now, while that $900 is good to know, you also need to know how to figure out what the total amount is going to be. So you're going to start out the same way. If they just want the interest, then you would just stop after principal rate time. If they want to know how much her investment is worth, then that's when you're going to have to do something extra. You can't just solve for interest. So again, you want to pay attention to whether they're asking you for interest or if they're asking for the investment. What is the investment's worth? But either way, you always start the same way, with interest. So principal in this case is 5,000. Because that's how much money she started with on day one. And then we do times the rate, which again is just the percent written in decimal format. So twice to the left is 0.04. And times the time. Because it's years, we just get to just leave it as that. We don't have to do any conversion at all, which is really nice. And then we multiply. So 5,000 times 0.04 is $200. And $200 times 5 is going to equal 1,000. And that is our interest. Okay? That is not how much her account is worth. Because think about it. If she invested $5,000, her account is going to be worth more than $5,000. Otherwise, someone just robbed her. Okay? So your total investment always is going to be bigger than the original investment. Okay? How the principal. The interest is always going to be smaller than that number. There's exceptions in the real world where that could be different, like with houses and stuff. But on the Casey, no. Your interest will be smaller than your initial investment. The total investment will always be bigger. So the total investment is going to be principal, which is still $5,000. The principal is that day one amount that you had before anything happened, any interest, any years, nothing. That's always your principal plus the interest. The interest, the problem will never give you that. That's what you had to solve first. So you add those together. So that means after 5 years, she's going to have a total of $6,000. That's it. See you in class. Thank you.